Good morning and welcome to the Sports Carnival live from the Trauma Center studios. Remember, if you have to borrow money, borrow it from a pessimist. They never expect it back. Now here's your host, Dave Carney.
You know, Chad, that's probably one of the reasons why when I was in need of some ducats, some cash, I went to the Bank of El Chad because I thought, hey, this guy, he's never going to need it back. He's never going to need this $600 back. And even if he did, he just would know that it's not coming. Even though I like to say I pay back all debts, if you're like I don't know, if you're somebody who's way too optimistic, you might get slow rolled just a little bit. Not a lot, but just a little bit.
Yeah. I think it's funny. If I remember correctly, you borrowed that money to buy a Saturn.
Yes.
That's the saddest thing I've ever heard in my life.
That was not sad. That car had 36,000 miles on it. It was a practical way to get around Las Vegas. And you know what, Chad? I had that car until I moved here to Wisconsin. Big thing that I realized, front wheel drive, middle of winter, ice and snow. Yeah. If you've got a way around the car thing and say you get into a big truck or into an SUV, you do so. Now, ironically, when gas prices went up so much 6 months ago, I did something which I may end up regretting. I bought a car again. We'll see how that works out. We'll see how that works out. If I keep this thing long term, okay. If
was
not,
it a Saturn?
No.
Saturns don't exist anymore.
No, they don't. No, they don't. Chevy decided to put their GM decided to put their money into a different basket and say, yeah, let's make something better than a Saturn. Hey, welcome to the car review portion of this.
I was just going to say, I don't know why that went into that whole deal, but there you go. I just remember that distinctly, and obviously it was my pleasure to let you borrow the money. And for everybody out there who's taking score, Dave paid it back in earnest.
In full.
So thank you. Yeah.
In full, and did so as quickly as I possibly could, because you know why? I couldn't let you be the guy to say, you see, I was the pessimist. I knew Dave wouldn't give me this fucking money back. I didn't. I was right the whole time. I couldn't let you have that. I can let our listeners have this, though. A big dish for this evening, Chad. Morning Wood, who's popping up. I don't know if he's popping up yet here this morning.
Not yet.
Wood would like to invite some folks out to watch Badger volleyball tonight, the Wisconsin Badgers volleyball team. I believe that's going to start at about 8 o'clock Central Time. We do have the Bucks and the Nets coming up tonight at 6:30 as well. We'll be talking about that game a bit as the show progresses on, but we're most likely going to be heading over to the recovery room, which of course powers, Chad, the Trauma Center studios. So if that happens to be something that you are inclined to do, follow us on the social medias. Again, the Sports Carney across the board. Chad, real quick, thanks to our friends Kyle Cable, One Trust Real Estate, the official real estate provider of the Sports Carnival, Preferred Insurance, Tony Russo, Brian Sandmeyer, the official insurance agency of the program, and of course, Mike Garcia and Todd Vercruzzi, not to be confused with Todd Vercuzzi, of the Midwest Mortgage Team of Land Home Financial. Guess where Mike Garcia is this morning?
DMV.
No, duck hunting. Chad,
duck hunting.
Duck hunting season, damn it. And he's down there at Goose Island. I didn't really ever know that duck hunting was a sport because I've seen these things walking parking lots all the time. And I've asked myself, so guys get together, they go to parking lots, and what? You start rounding up duck? And no, apparently that's not the case. What you do is you get into a duck murder machine, which is like a boat all shrouded in grass or fake grass. You go out onto the river and you wait for these less than uber intelligent animals to make some sort of a movie. You spray them with a bunch of buckshot and you let your dogs go collect it. It's a pretty good way to spend a Wisconsin fall/early winter day.
See, now if you're Dick Cheney and you go bird hunting, you drive up to a place that has them in a cage and then you shoot your lawyer in the face.
Hey,
so everybody does it different. That's I'm just
did you see that movie Vice, by the way, with Christian Bale playing Dick Cheney?
Oh,
okay.
No, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Watch. It's fantastic. All right, guys, we've got a lot to get over this morning. I see that we've got so many of our friends checking in. Chad, Joey Miller, Jim Tim, Jason Breacher, UWL Thomas, Neil the Duda. Marengo Mike is, by the way, mentioning, do not forget, Dave, the countdown is on for the annual Huntley Turkey Testicle Festival. This is real.
I've got a shirt.
It's a turkey testicle festival, literally turkey balls.
You're going to have to explain to me. I don't understand that.
Marengo Mike actually would have to join us in order for me to get the full scope of this. So Mike, if that's something that you're interested in doing, hit us up on the comments and then we'll send you a link at some point. We'll get you on. Today, Chad, we've got Joe Daguanno, our green and gold insider, jumping aboard. I should say jumping into the Sports Carney carousel at about 8:30. We've got a lot to talk about with Joe, this Green Bay Packer team, which is reeling, and Aaron Rodgers, who is the subject of this morning's poll question on our Twitter feed at the Sports Carney, who had a lot of things to say about the Green Bay Packers team and possibly some of his teammates on the Pat McAfee show yesterday, which we'll get into more when we come up with Joe. But like I've mentioned, if Marengo Mike wants to give us Turkey Testicle Festival information, that's the way that you've got to do it. Get us a comment. Mike says he's still listening from the duck line. Don't ruin your duck hunt, though, with our voices. That would be my only thing. And maybe that doesn't matter. Mike, do ducks hear? And if they do, do they hear well?
These are all good questions. I'm still trying to figure out what the hell's going on with turkey testicles. It sounds amazing. I don't know exactly what's going on there, but it sounds a little medieval, which is great. I'm all about that. And murdering birds is always fun. I mean, let's be honest.
Okay, so birds and me, we've got beef because birds are the last layover from the dinosaurs. Okay, the avian things that we see now are nothing but little tiny dinosaurs, which is why smartly humans early on killed all the biggest of the birds that were left over, those gargantuan ostrich. You want to run around. See, somebody asked me once, and this is a stupid question, but would you rather fight 100 duck-sized horses, okay, or 100 horse-sized ducks? What's the answer?
Yeah, I think I want to fight the smaller animal, not the bigger animal.
Dude,
no
you want to
what
fight
kind of shape it is.
You want to fight a duck-sized horse. That's the only answer, because if you put a duck the size of a horse, that thing becomes a velociraptor. Okay?
Well, sure.
So when you say as rare as hen's teeth, yeah, sure, until they're that big, and then you find out that they're massive.
Okay. All right. We'll agree to disagree.
For right now, we've got so much to cover here on the Sports Carnival. As a matter of fact, we're going to roll out our first edition of what we've missed this week so far. The NBA chat last night was damn near old school, 80s like chippy. Stick around. We're back in about a minute here on the Sports Carnival.
I can't imagine a week going by without going to the Recovery Room Bar and Grill, 7th and Mississippi Street in downtown La Crosse. I'm serious. If you know me, you know that my favorite restaurant, not just my favorite bar, but my favorite restaurant in all of downtown La Crosse, Wisconsin, is none other than the Recovery Room Bar and Grill. Whether it's their burgers, their pizza, their wings, their gyros, their prime rib, or their fish, it's all good. And the wait staff, my gosh, some of the friendliest and coolest people that you'll ever meet. Matt, the owner, great friend of mine. The Recovery Room, 7th and Mississippi Street. I can't go a week without it. How about you?
Hi, I'm Irene, and I care about you. That's why I started Care Packages by Irene, or CPBI. At CPBI, we have a wide range of care packages, from I care about you but don't get too clingy, to I'm completely obsessed with you and you should probably get a restraining order, and everything in between. Because it's CPBI, if you care, we care.
Visit us online at carepackagesbyirene.omg.
Oh, yeah. Back to the action live from the Trauma Center studios. This is the Sports Carnival with this reminder. Never argue with an idiot. They'll drag you down to their level and beat you with experience. There's your host, Dave Carney.
Wow. So that's why nobody wants to go back and forth with me at a bar, huh?
That's a good tip. Idiots are hard to argue with. You have to admit.
You really do. And boy, there's a whole lot to unpack right there. I see that Morning Wood's popping up big this morning, he says. I'm popping up big, baby. Morning Wood needs a night out. Let me tell you what. Morning Wood's been, listen, he's been carrying the load, the burden here. And you know how that is. Sometimes when you carry that burden, feels a little too heavy. The only way to burn off some steam is to go out, watch some Wisconsin Badgers volleyball, perhaps some NBA basketball, little Bucks, little Nets action tonight, and I'll pour a drink down your throat, maybe, Kyle. We'll see how that goes.
So Mike Garcia from the Duck Blind is checking in. He says, yes, ducks can hear, but it's like deer hunting. But it isn't like deer hunting.
It isn't like deer hunting, probably meaning that you don't have to be so quiet, right? Because when you're in the deer huts, then you have to be really, really quiet.
I only went duck hunting one time with my cousin. I was about 12 years old. Okay. And you got to get up at like 3:30 in the morning, and you're out standing in a pool of water, basically, because you're in a pond, right? At least we were.
Sounds
It's
awesome.
freezing. We were using 3-inch mag shotgun shells. So every time I took a shot, it ripped my shoulder off. I wasn't happy about it. I never went back. It's like golf to me.
Really?
Other people can do it. I'm not. That's not my thing. You know.
Okay. See, here's what I would propose.
And duck tastes like shit, by the way. Just my opinion. It tastes like dirt.
They can. If they can be a little fatty. I'm not going to lie. It can be a little fatty. Rob Dog from Stoddard was actually chiming in. What kind of gun do I get and how much ammo do I need? Chad kind of gave you that answer right there. Here's what I would propose then, okay? Because if we're looking at duck hunting and golf as two things that perhaps you don't get into as currently constructed, let's flip the script a little bit. You take the golf club out there with you duck hunting because that's a
now
challenge.
It's a sport. Okay? Now it's a sport.
That's a challenge. And you take the shotgun with you to the golf course and you get to, put a little fear into some of the people that are golfing, right? Because like I've said many times, it wasn't really golf that I hated as a sport. It was just largely golfers. I've sort of gotten over that as the years have progressed, Chad. And one of the reasons is here in Wisconsin, the great state of Wisconsin, you got to take every opportunity that is given to you to go outside and soak up as much vitamin D and as much sun and as much above freezing wind as you can possibly get, because we know the winters on the West Coast, while they can still be cold, and I get it, Washington State's a northern state, it's going to get chilly. Man, it's nothing like 6 months of the rugged northern country. This is like the tundra, bro. This is the tundra. And so you'll go out golfing. If you were here too, you'd be like, damn, I actually turned out to like golf.
All things considered, though, you grew up in California. I think you were in Aruba at one point in your life, and Vegas.
Yes.
All three of those have something in common, and that is that they're not cold ever.
Never.
Very, very warm. So to you, what cold is, and to what people that grew up in that neck of the woods is not quite the same thing.
It's not. It's completely understandable. And here's the other thing. We look at where families traveled through their course of history, right? Most of the folks up here, we got a lot of Norwegians and folks that even come from Germany, from Norway, from Sweden, and Switzerland. And ironically, Chad, some of the landscapes around here look remarkably similar to those places over there. It's beautiful country. But what I'm saying is that those people have been born, bred, and actually evolved to take that. I came from a ragtag bunch of Scots-Irish hooligans who probably went from the fucking, Smoky Mountains down into, Oklahoma through Texas and then rode out with John Steinbeck in the Grapes of Wrath to California, right?
Wow.
So everybody came from a place that was like really kind of warm. It's been warm people for some time, hot-tempered, hot-blooded, and from warm countries.
Way too early to be dropping John Steinbeck references.
Hey, don't throw me out on Cannery Row. I'm fine.
That's great. Good stuff.
All right, Rob Dog's checking in again. But, Dave, you can go out for a run when it's 5 degrees and snowing and then stand at the ballpark for a bit drinking a root beer. I can't do that. Rob Dog from Stoddard can do that because I see him run his happy ass around town all the time. And I'm like, dude, what's up? And he's like, Dave, 5 degrees today.
See, Michael Garcia, this is what I'm talking about. He says it's not cold till January. He's right. Because he's used to it. Now, January, then you can start bitching and moaning. Speaking of bitching and moaning, I don't know if you watched any basketball last night. I just got to throw this out there, okay? So the plucky New Orleans Pelicans ended up without Brandon Ingram, without Zion, without Herbert. They ended up beating Luka Doncic and the Mavs.
By bucket.
And Luka, I have to say, I've never seen such a whiny bitch in the whole entire. I mean, he bitched the whole game. And here's my thing. If I was a coach, I would say, I don't mind if you bitch at the ref, but I only want dead ball bitching. It's a new thing I'm coming up with.
I like that.
Bitching. If you don't get a call, okay, and you think you're fouled, great. But you got to get back on transition defense. And if you want to jaw a little bit while you're running down, at least pay attention to your guy. But ultimately, I want to wait till there's a dead ball, then go over and bitch and complain to the ref. That irritates me because that happened multiple times last night. And Luka at the end of the game had a chance to win that game with that 3-pointer, and he missed. It was a good look. And you know what? It is what it is. It was a 28-footer or whatever. But God, that just irritated me. He reminded me a lot of, and this is a shot towards you, of Magic Johnson a little bit. He looks like Larry, but he bitches like Magic.
Hey now. I was going to say Vlade Divac. Okay, this to me feels like something that we have seen time and time again. And I'm not picking on European basketball players. I'm just picking on the way that European sports is largely played. Look at soccer, right? Look at the way that European basketball is largely played. And I think there's a lot more correlation between the soccer, where it's always this aggrieved stance to the referee. I mean, the soccer guys are, with the jerseys, and I mean, like, come on. And I think that that's sort of something I've seen in Luka Doncic. And I don't disagree that that's a bad look. Here's, part of what I think has happened in the NBA especially, and we've always known this is the case in certain sports, which we'll probably touch on in things that we have missed this week so far with like referees being fans. But in the NBA, especially in the NBA, star players get the treatment from the officials unlike any other league that I can really think of. Hockey, forget about it. You can get your head taken off just as easy if you're Connor McDavid or Sidney Crosby as you can if you're just some guy that we don't even know of, right? In the NFL, the quarterbacks are protected now more than ever. We get that. But in the NBA, man, if you're like Rob Dog says, have you seen LeBron?
Good point.
LeBron was like this. Michael was like this too. Actually, I remember a clip from when I was a kid, and I can't remember the referee's name off the top of my head, but he was an old timer with red hair. Bill Walton was sitting there whining when he was at the Celtics, and this clip was like the referee yelling at Bill Walton. He's like, "Get and run up the floor, you big baby." And it's just been going on forever. And Bill Walton, to his credit, was a big star.
I agree that this has been going on a long time, and I understand it's part of the game. It just was excessive last night. Again,
Okay.
When it's interrupting you from transitioning into defense, that's a problem if I'm the coach. That's just my opinion. Absolutely. I mean, I know you're going to bitch, but, bitch in between. I'm telling you, dead ball bitching.
Well, and look,
start a thing. Dead ball bitching. Hashtag dead ball bitching.
This is going to be on all of our socials later. Hashtag dead ball bitching. And this is something that I think needs to be explored. Boone's Farm, James Jacobson's checking, and he's like, have you ever watched LBJ? He's the whiniest of all whiny bitches.
True.
He's up there. I've seen a lot of guys through the years.
He's a professional bitcher. He knows when to bitch.
He does. And to his credit, when he does bitch, generally over the course of his career, now maybe a little bit less and less as it's gone on, there possibly has been something to it. One of the guys that I never really saw bitch all that much to the referees was somebody that you mentioned the other day, Robert Parrish. Robert Parrish didn't bitch because he knew he had 3 or 4 punches that he was going to lay out on somebody. Like Robert Parrish needed to hit Bill Laimbeer in the face 2 or 3 times to, be good. And he figured there was no reason in adjudicating that before he had already gone so far as to hit the man, which is a nice little tie into last night's game. So Morningwood was texting me early this AM, and you and I were talking about it. That Warriors and that Suns game that was played last night, which I thought was going to be a really tight game. The Suns blew Golden State out. And for one of the first times this NBA season, Chad, I actually lost one of my Dave's Daily Play, not by a ton, but I had that player prop on Curry going over 38.5 total points, rebounds, and assists. And he came in with, I think, 36 total points, rebounds, and assists. He had by far his worst shooting night of the season, did Curry. Had 21 points on 7 for 17, if memory serves, had 8 rebounds and 7 boards. So he was close, but he didn't get there. Klay Thompson had a horrific game for the Golden State Warriors. Devin Booker was giving him the business. And I know that Klay Thompson, and this is kind of where you wonder if his game isn't really kind of like leaving him, because Klay Thompson previously wouldn't have gotten into that kind of interaction or altercation. But then he's like pointing at his 4, I got 4. I got 4. See, that felt a little bush league to me right there. I mean, I get it. And, you want to give him a little something as you go out. But, bro, you're just getting waxed. I mean, you were getting worked.
If you're struggling on both ends, and a guy like Devin Booker, he reminds me a lot of Steph Curry. Those guys need a 1/4 inch of space. That's all they need to get off their shot. And 9 times out of 10, that sumbitch is going to go in. And he did that last night, and he's got a great floater. He can drive to the hoop. He can shoot the 3. He's got a step back. I mean, his arsenal offensively is unbelievable, and he's not a bad defensive player. And
he's getting better.
Yeah, and Thompson was just struggling. I mean, Klay was struggling offensively, and I know that frustrates him. And after coming off of all those, injuries and stuff, now granted, last year he had a better year and they won the championship. And obviously this was a little bit of the Suns pissed off because of last year's, series, and they wanted to win. They were at home. I get all of it. I actually kind of saw that as a good thing because, Klay Thompson's never been ejected from a game. That was the first time. And I think that shows a little bit of character. That shows that it's early on. God, we're in game 4, game 3, whatever it is. And this is happening.
Game 4.
I think it's a good sign, honestly. I like him being a little feisty.
Well, I always think it's a good sign when guys are really into it like that. What you don't want is the checked out sort of approach where it's,
Right.
this is no big deal and we can just move it right along. Nothing to see here for sure. What I do think with Klay Thompson, though, is possible. I don't know that it's actually happening because you mentioned last year, heck, he didn't play for the entire season. I mean, he came back later, but he was getting worked into shape. And yes, they win the chip and you got 4 and all this is good. But Klay Thompson's missed like seasons of basketball now, right? And we've talked about this with Zion Williamson yesterday, and Joel Embiid falls into this category to some degree too. You miss seasons of basketball. Now, when you're later into your career, probably a little bit more devastating than earlier in your career. And I can see a little bit of frustration on Klay Thompson's part mounting because physically he can't be what he used to be. And not that he was ever a super duper athlete, but you know your body better than anybody. And when Klay's trying to feel out where exactly he is, I think that possibly contributes to frustration, which is why he had never really been kicked out of a game before, because he's like, cool, I'll hit 6 more threes. We're going to win this game. Everything will be good. And when you don't do that, when you can't do that, maybe at least you feel like you can't, I can see the frustration sort of bubbling up.
But if you're a Golden State Warrior fan, obviously, it's very, very early, but I mean, the things to look at, Andrew Wiggins is playing out of his, out of the gym. And Poole played really well. Wiseman looked good. I mean, the team looked good overall. I didn't think they got Steph involved enough, and he was hitting early on, and he did end up missing. I think he was 22 for 22 for free throws, and he missed right after Kevin Harlan said whatever he said. And they made a big joke about it.
They kind of pointed over to the side like, hey.
But also on the other side was somebody you talked about the other day was Chris Paul. He actually had a really good game. And he had his best game. 3 for 4 from 3. I think he had 19 points and 9 assists or something along those lines. And he looked pretty good. Mikal Bridges looked good. I mean, the Suns looked good overall, but Devin Booker just had a hell of a night, and he got the best of Klay Thompson. So I'm sure that will be to be determined later. I'm sure they'll refresh that little beef the next time they show up, and who knows how that goes.
Well, it's going to be exciting. This game by far is no indication of what these two teams are going to be like for the entire season. Golden State falls to 2-2, Chad, right? In the 134-105 loss. Phoenix moves to 3-1. I like Phoenix this year. I don't know if they're quite as deep as they were in the seasons past. So they did have a good game from this kid, Landale, off the bench, a center who was a new guy, 17 points and 7 boards. Devin Booker, like you mentioned, just went crazy. But Chris Paul did have his best game by far this season, 16 points, 7 boards, 9 dimes. And he shot 4 for 5 from three-point range and 5 for 10 from the floor. Paul was averaging, I want to say, about 7 points a game this season coming into this one last night. So he had a nice rebound game, and that's good for him. But for the Golden State Warriors, maybe you do look at this as like, all right, cool. So we get to be, we get to be a little chippy in this one because we're getting worked, but we've also had some internal strife. Maybe that whole thing with the punch that Draymond Green leveled on to, it wasn't Jordan Poole. Actually,
it was.
It was Jordan Poole. Yeah. Maybe that punch plus what we see last night from Klay Thompson means this team is feisty and in for sort of a fight. But if you look at the score, I mean, getting blown out by 30, that's not a good indicator.
No, but they still have 2 more wins than the Lakers. So
yes, they do. Hey,
in the 76ers.
Real quick, I got to do this as soon as possible, and I encourage you to do this too if you want to make some money. I know that last night I came in a little short of my player prop with Steph Curry, but here's the thing: I've said this, and I'll say it again and again and again until it turns out to not be true. Fade the Los Angeles Lakers in every single spot you can against a good team. Now, this evening, Russell Westbrook is not going to be playing. He's going to be held out. Chad, the Lakers are only 6-point dogs on the road against Denver. Denver is going to kill these guys tonight. So do yourself a favor. Take out the entirety of your children's college scholarship or their college fund and put it on the Denver Nuggets to cover a 6-point spread. Good morning to you, Terry.
Maybe not all of your money.
Maybe not all of it. Maybe
just responsibly, people. Bet responsibly.
All right. So I just said that. You're right. Gambling is something you should only do with money that you can lose, which means it's your 401k account. So take out all of your 401k account because you know that thing's not winning, and then you throw it on the Denver Nuggets to cover. Hey, Chad, before we get too far into the program, Joe Daguanno, our Green and Gold insider, going to join us this morning in about 6 or 7 minutes. We'll talk to Joe D about what Aaron Rodgers had to say in Pat McAfee's show, and also something that Joe had mentioned to us a week or so ago, Chad, about the offensive line. And what you've really noticed here with this Green Bay Packer offensive line, as much as we want to say the problems of this Packers team are centered on one thing or another, there may actually be one key indicator that Joe pointed out a couple of weeks ago that has more to do with the Packers' recent struggles than anything else. But if you would, I'd like to unveil our first ever midweek wrap-up of what we've missed so far this week. And Chad, we've got to give a lot of credit for those that have come up with the nickname Russell Westbrook, because this guy is atrocious right now. And I don't think that Russell Westbrook is not a player that can still play in the NBA. He's still got some value somewhere. But right now, for this Lakers team, he has been absolutely atrocious. And you mentioned the other day that Russell got benched late in that game, okay? The last game for the Lakers against Portland, Russell got benched late. Look at how bad Westbrook is shooting. 11 for 38 from 2. That's 28.9%. And 1 for 12 from three-point range. Chad, if you gave us, both of us, 6 weeks of a training camp and like a lot of open shots, I know it sounds crazy, but I kind of feel like we would have hit more than 1 for 12 from downtown.
I would hope so, but I love this graphic. Westbrook has a garbage can. He's just trash. He's shooting trash. That's really well done. Nice work.
Yeah.
He struggled mightily. He's never been a great shooter to begin with. And the season if you're a Lakers fan, you got to feel like a Packers fan. It's just things aren't going well.
No. If you're a Lakers fan, you feel probably worse than you do as a Packers fan right now, because at least the Green Bay Packers have a 17-game season and they've already played 7 of those, so there's only 10 more games to have to suffer through. If you're a Laker, if you're a Laker fan, man, you've got like 78 more games to suffer through. As a matter of fact, I'll say this, as a Laker fan, and I'm like a historical Laker fan, if you're listening to us and perhaps you caught us in Los Angeles, just put your season tickets on the back burner for right now. Put them into like a program. Maybe you can get a refund. Maybe you can get something for next year. I don't know. This is going to be a bad season for LA. But I don't know if it's as bad, Chad, as this next little story that, again, we missed, but it's not like we didn't know that it was actually happening. We just had too much to talk about. Matty Ice, not to be confused with Matt Euler, part of the program, but the Matty Ice, Matt Ryan, has been put on ice now by the Indianapolis Colts. So apparently Sam Ellinger, who you probably know of, is going to start the rest of the season.
I've never heard of him. Honestly, I've not heard of. I wasn't sure how to say his name.
Really? So you didn't watch preseason Colts football where he was the preseason darling against everybody's favorite 4th and 5th line tackles, secondaries? It was really just such a wonderful performance for Ellinger. Here's the thing with the Colts, man. They get rid of Wentz last year, 27 touchdowns, 7 picks. I realized that Ursi was pissed off about that end of the season loss to the Jags, but they get rid of Wentz, 27 touchdowns and 7 picks, and a team that, had they beaten the Jags, was going to be in the playoffs. All right. Then you bring in Matt Ryan, and you don't just bring in Matt Ryan on like, hey, this is a flyer sort of a deal and we're going to give you an incentive-based contract. No. You gave Matt Ryan 2 years of fully guaranteed money. Chad, even if Matt Ryan does not step on the football field next year for any team, the Indianapolis Colts owe him $12 million guaranteed dollars. $12 million. It could go up to another $17 million on top of that if Matt Ryan's injured, which in some of the research that I've done has become, to me at least, one of the signifiers of why they're making this move now. So, Ryan got himself banged up the other day, but if he takes a significant injury, the Colts could be on the hook for another 17 plus million over the 12 that they're already going to owe him for this season and next season. It's really kind of incomprehensible how bad Jim Irsay, Frank Reich, and Ballard, their GM, fucked this thing up. It really is. This is awful if you're the Colts.
Sam Ellinger.
Okay.
Yes. You got to remember that. I got it. Okay.
All right. So Sam Ellinger, we also didn't have a chance to quite get into this. The NFL investigated, Chad, a couple of referees for potential fandom after a Buccaneers loss to the Carolina Panthers. Now, according to the NFL's investigation, because I saw the video yesterday, the referee was not asking him for his autograph, not at all. He wanted to make sure to stop him because he's got a friend that's a golf pro. that's a golf pro, Chad, and wanted to make this is real. I'm not making this up.
I don't believe this shit.
A friend that was a golf pro and just wanted to make sure to get Mike Evans, the golf pro. He wanted to make sure that they exchanged phone numbers.
Right. And they bought this story. They bought this story. Can you believe that?
They bought this story because they're like the Jaguars.
Clearly, you could tell by his posture. That looked like an autograph. Hey, dude, you mind signing this for me? That's what that was.
Absolutely. But no,
I've seen that so many times.
I've got to give you the number to my golf pro because, hey, you're going to golf in probably 6 or 7 months when the season's over, right? No time like the present to get into that. All right. One of our favorite weekly guests, Joe Daguanno, our Green and Gold Insider, going to be coming up next year on the Sports Carnival. Chad and I are broadcasting live from the Trauma Center studios, powered by the Recovery Room. You don't go anywhere. Preferred Insurance is the official auto, home, business, flood, and life insurance agency of the Sports Carnival, serving folks in La Crosse and surrounding areas with licenses in Wisconsin, Minnesota, and Iowa. As an independent insurance agency, Preferred Insurance is free to find the very best insurance for you, your family, or your business needs. Call my friends at Preferred Insurance today and set up a free consultation. Remember, working with an independent agency means Preferred Insurance works for you, with you, to find the best solutions at the best prices.
Now more than ever, if you're looking to buy or sell your first home or perhaps an investment property, you need a full-time dedicated real estate agent who is up to date on all the latest trends and analysis and is ready to give you the kind of service that you deserve. That's why the official real estate agent and the official real estate partner of the Sports Carnival is Kyle Cable of One Trust Real Estate. Whether you're looking to buy or sell your first home, or perhaps you are a seasoned investor, call the official real estate agent partner of the Sports Carnival, Kyle Cable of One Trust Real Estate.
Live from the Trauma Center studios, this is the Sports Carnival. You know, the voices in my head may not be real, but they have some good ideas. Now here's your host, Dave Carney.
Chad,
sorry about that. I totally messed that whole entire segment up. I apologize.
No, you didn't mess anything up, man. I was going to say the voices inside of your head have become some of my best friends. Matter of fact.
I appreciate that.
Well, while you're sleeping, I get a call from these other guys, and it's like, oh boy, who's on this shoulder? Is that the devil or the angel? Those are interesting voices. I like them.
I like it.
Hope you guys are all having a great start to your Wednesday morning here on the Sports Carnival. Again, thanks to Kyle Cable, One Trust Real Estate, Preferred Insurance, Tony Russo, Brian Sandmeyer, Midwest Mortgage Team, Mike Garcia, who is duck hunting, and Todd Vercruzzi. Also want to thank our friend Joe over at Helping Hands Landscaping, Chad. If you have lawn care that you need taken care of, La Crosse and Onalaska, maybe dog poop picked up, or snow being shoveled, then you can call Joe at Helping Hands Landscaping. I do know this for a fact, guys. Joe decided years ago, even though it was a cost on the business, to not pick up dog poop with his hands anymore. So he got one of those little pooper scoopers.
Smart.
It seems to have really taken his business to the next level.
That's
Joe,
no shit.
It's a hell of a that's. Hey, don't shit a shitter. Joe Daguanno, our Mad Dog of Madison, some guy that's not full of shit but brings the fire, with us here again. Hey, Joe. First of all, how's everything personally? Everybody feeling good this week so far?
Yeah, everybody's good. We are through, I think, the crap, and I think we're all good. And Chad, I just want to say, as far as the voices in your head, that is the voice of reason, my man.
Ooh,
that is where that is, in my opinion, that is the voice of reason. So if you can like Bluetooth those things to me as well, I would appreciate that, man.
I will try.
Well, Joe, you've been the voice of reason for the Green Bay Packers over the course of the entirety of my being in Wisconsin. And because of that, you became our Green and Gold Insider. I know that you've got a lot to say about this particular team and where it is right now. And I'm kind of curious if we want to start with what McAfee had to say, or what Rodgers had to say on McAfee's show yesterday, or go back to what you had sort of adjudicated about a week and a half ago here on the program about the Packers offensive line, because Chad and I have been talking a lot about this. And Joe, the further we go into the season, the more about what it is that you described to us seems to be coming to fruition, or at least seems to be evidenced on the all-22 game film. So where do you want to start, Joe? Aaron on Pat McAfee, or O-line as indicted by you already?
Well, let's talk about Aaron. And just so you guys know, Dave, I'm giving you your best grade of the season so far today, just so you know. Just listening to the show and seeing what you're doing, by far, it's the best grade of the season. So let's get that out of the way. But it's kind of like when AA Ron was going through stuff with COVID and all that. It's just shut up, man. Just shut up. I mean, that Pat McAfee appearance that he does has done more damage to who he is as a person, who he is as a player, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now, here's the bottom line, and there you go, Chad. 2 minutes in, bottom line, 3 minutes in.
Love it. Yes, so, it was about 2. Yeah, good job.
Here's kind of where I was looking at it. And I was breaking down film on this. And look, Aaron is to blame. So is Matt LaFleur. So is Brian Gutekunst. So is Romeo Dobbs. So is Zach Tom. So is AJ. I mean, the list goes on and on. So for Aaron to say he had his best grade. Now, I looked at that clip over and over again. And I said to myself, is Aaron being a little bit self-deprecating, saying, I didn't play that well, but I still got a good grade. So we don't know. We do know it's intentional. We know everything that Rodgers says is intentional. But I want to go back to that failed fourth down play, because football is the ultimate team sport. If you want to sit back and point fingers at one player or one thing, you're fucking wrong. All right. So it's the ultimate team sport. So let's look at that fourth down play. And I tweeted this out last night. And I've looked over this play over and over again. And I started comparing it because that is a typical play on fourth down for Green Bay. Everyone, if you look back at the last, especially the Matt LaFleur years, that is a typical fourth and short play. Now, again, Davante Adams is usually the guy, or was usually the guy, getting that. Now, when you look at the play call and the formation, and when you look at that defense, I would have called timeout. All right. So that's the first thing. So I put that on LaFleur, because you had 10 in the box at that point, and they were playing press coverage. And so on that type of situation, you're hoping to get a guy play off you. And if you didn't like that look, Rodgers needs to call the timeout. But I didn't like the play call. I didn't like the formation against that defense. You have A.J. Dillon in there as well. And so, again, now I'm pointing at the sidelines, and I'm saying it's LaFleur's fault. I don't think that was a good call in that situation. Secondly, I blame this on Gutekunst, because Romeo Dobbs is not even close to Davante Adams. All right? And so you don't have the guy that can make that play like Adams made on fourth down. And you know that. And so you've got to maybe change it up at that point. If you rerun that play several times, there were several players that made mistakes on that play. First of all, Zach Tom, playing left tackle, allowed too much penetration. So at that point, that's a tough pass for Rodgers to make. You, at that point, since it's a quick pass, you don't need to get depth as a left tackle. You need to actually keep your ground to make sure that Rodgers has a throwing lane. Secondly, Amari Rodgers doesn't run that deep enough. He stops too short as that inside slot guy. Thirdly, Sammy Watkins is supposed to block that cornerback on him, and he does a go route. That's why the cornerback was able to just sit there and hit press coverage. And so then you got Romeo Dobbs, who I don't think ran the route flat enough. And then you have Aaron Rodgers who throws it too far inside. So to me, gentlemen, that was the microcosm of this Green Bay Packer team, because fingers can be pointed everywhere right now for that offense. And I'm going to give this to you because I think that since early on in the season, Joe Barry has done a nice job adjusting. Packer fans bitched that they wanted Jair Alexander in press coverage. They got it. Packer fans bitched that they wanted more exotic blitzes. Guess what? Quay Walker coming off the edge this past week was a look that other teams hadn't seen. So Joe Barry has done his job, folks. Right now, the onus of responsibility of where this team is today at 3-4 is the offense. And the problem does lie in a lot of different areas. And again, I look back over and over and over again at the pass. And when I look at that pass, I say, okay, was Rodgers purposely throwing it inside to throw it away from coverage? Because again, in DC, you and I tweeted back and forth on this. When you look at that deep pass, Romeo Dobbs, at one point, Rodgers starts scrambling, throws it deep. Romeo Dobbs runs right into coverage at that point. rather than running to open space. And so, again, I'm not pointing fingers just at Romeo Doubs. When you look at Jordy Nelson, when you look at James Jones, when you look at Greg Jennings, when you look at Devontae Adams, they all made a lot of mistakes their 2 years in the league. Matter of fact, Packer fans were clamoring for Devontae Adams to get his ass kicked out of Green Bay by his second year. So there are so many issues. But I looked at that one play. When I'm looking at game film and I break that down, that, gentleman, is why the Packers are sucking right now, because it takes more than one player to make an offense work. And right now, they are hurting. Gutekunst has failed them. Matt LaFleur has failed them. Aaron Rodgers has failed them. And just about every other player on that offense. Because Alan Lazard, wide receiver 1, first drive of the game, drops a first down pass. And so, again, right now, it's symptomatic of the whole team.
So, Joe, while we're still on this conversation, because it does go into so many different areas, Chad, I want you to pull up that graphic we have, because we've just got a couple of quotes from Aaron on the Pat McAfee show yesterday. And I love that you started off with you giving me the highest grade here on the program, which actually should be the way that it goes. Aaron gave himself the highest grade. As we see in front of us now, this was my highest graded game by my quarterback coach, he says, which people may be surprised to hear. That kind of shit reminds me of somebody else that currently occupies some space in this country and takes out a lot of air. This sounds like classic deflection. The next thing that I want to go to is this.
There's a shot.
I'm just saying. The next thing I want to go to is this. Aaron goes on to say, and this is from the Pat McAfee show yesterday, which, listen, if you're Pat McAfee, you love having this guy on. You really do.
Absolutely. I mean, don't get me wrong. As I said, Aaron needs to shut up, but, Pat McAfee's like, no, keep talking. Keep talking.
He's made a career, because McAfee's show is largely a show like this, where we're not scripted. We're not on an FCC regulated format. We can be a bit looser, which gives Aaron an opportunity to be his most honest self, which I think is great if you're the guy collecting the sound. But what he puts back out here, and Joe, this is really what I wanted to hit on with you too, because you're a football coach. Okay. And you understand how hard each and every one of these guys work, even if they're not great based on what a fan's perception is. All of these men work extremely hard. So Rodgers says, quote, guys who are making too many mistakes shouldn't be playing. Got to start cutting some reps. Maybe guys who aren't playing, give a chance. We're going to see. All right, listen, while that may be fair to say when you're in a closed room, when you're with your quarterback's coach, when you put that out there on a Pat McAfee or any broadcast media platform, what you're doing is hindering the opportunity for these men to make a living. You are taking food off of their tables, because what you're saying is these guys suck. Don't hire them. Don't put them on the field. That's a livelihood shot, which, Joe, I just go directly against it. And I'll take this back, different situation, but it was in football when Myles Garrett made up that ridiculous nonsense about, what was that quarterback's name? Mason Rudolph. The same thing I said, dude, shut the fuck up, because that's not true. And what you're trying to do is take money out of this man's hands. You're trying to take food off of his table. Stay within the boundaries of where it is that you can be constructive. To me, this was not constructive. Now, really quick, Rodgers went on to say, we also had so many mental errors and mistakes. It's not the kind of football we're used to playing through the years, blah, 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 blah. When is he going to step up there and say, listen, guys, as the quarterback of this team that makes the lion's share of the money, which basically disallowed us from going to get X, Y, or Z wide receiver, I've got to be that guy better. I've got to be better, because look at MVS last year for Packer fans. Oh, he's just hot trash. He looks okay with Patrick Mahomes. Is he all of a sudden an elite receiver that we didn't see coming last year? And didn't Patrick Mahomes get the same amount of time to work with old MVS as Rodgers has had to work with these guys on his team? The answer is yes. The thing that Packer fans, I can tell, are starting to blow back on is this opinion of Rodgers that it's all these fingers pointing out, never one pointing back at him. But look what happens when you point a gun. You got one fucking finger and then the three others pointing back at you, dude. Yeah. You've got to take some credit or some responsibility. He seems incapable or unwilling to do that.
Yeah, no, I'm totally with you. And like I said, this goes back to, when we got to the point with Aaron and the COVID situation, it's just shut the fuck up and play football, man. I really don't give a shit about your opinion on things like COVID and those types of things. And when you look at what he said on McAfee, now, who is he talking about? All right, let's break this down now. Who is he talking about? The only person that I could probably see is maybe Romeo Doubs. Yeah. All right, because Sammy Watkins has been hurt. It's not Lazard because he's one of Rodgers' boys. The offensive line has made the changes that we talked about after the Jets game. So the changes were made there. It's not Bobby Tunyon. It's not Aaron Jones. It's probably not A.J. Dillon. So let me ask you this, General Manager Rodgers. Who do you replace Romeo Doubs with? And again, this where the fingers got to point back to Goody a little bit because what are you going to do? Replace him with Toure, the 7th round pick? You don't have the talent. There's nobody sitting there right now that fans, that coaches, that players are pining for to see play. They just don't have anybody on that roster. And again, that leads me to my next thing. I do see Gutekunst making moves this week before the trade deadline next week. I do see Green Bay being active. Now, reports are out there that Green Bay is looking to make a deal with a wide receiver still on their rookie deal, which makes sense for Green Bay at a lot of levels. And again, the name that jumps out at me, obviously Jerry Jeudy is a guy, but does he fit what Green Bay needs? The name that could jump out to me, and you guys talked about it earlier with the fucked up situation with Indy right now with Matt Ryan, a name that jumps out to me is Michael Pittman. So I like that a lot from a lot of different levels. And what I saw last night is speculation, and I'm going to throw this back to you guys. Wouldn't it be ironic, don't you think, if Jordan Love gets dealt to the Colts with the fucked up QB situation they're in, and that becomes hey, you need a young quarterback, we need a young wide receiver. Now, if Goody's able to pull something off like that, I tip my hat to him. But I think Goody makes a move this week, maybe even 2. Now, also reports are out there that Goody's sniffing around for edge rushers as well. So if Goody goes in, and because it is one of those things, guys, when you look at why are the Packers in this situation? Why is it fucked up right now? And again, fingers pointing everywhere. Look at the 2020 draft of one Brian Gutekunst.
Yeah.
All right. Jordan Love, big question mark. A.J. Dillon, okay, good pick in the 2nd round. Josiah Daguanno, that gets about 10% of the snaps in every game, was your 3rd round pick. Kamal Martin off the team, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. When you don't get really any full-time starter out of a draft, you're fucked. And you always look at a draft 3 years later. And why is Green Bay in this situation? It's a lot of different finger pointing. And again, going back to Aaron, just shut up. But I know he's not going to because Pat McAfee, his ratings and everything are through the roof right now. One thing, guys, that I love, and I don't know if you saw this. So Terry McLaurin, who ate up Jair Alexander on Sunday, ate him up.
He did.
All right. He ate him up. And Packer fans, you bitched and bitched and bitched. Why isn't Jair on the number 1? You got him. And here's the thing. I love this. And I don't know if you guys saw this. With the pick before Washington picked McLaurin, the Green Bay Packers select Jace Sternberger, tight end. And the funny thing is, Jace on Twitter said the Packers should have drafted McLaurin. I loved that. That was one of the most – he won the internet, in my opinion. Perfect. And honestly, that almost got me through the Packer loss just seeing Jace Sternberger doing that. I almost wanted to call him up and say, dude, I need to buy you drinks because of that. But, yeah, the fingers are pointing everywhere, and there's not one area. I don't think they turn this around. I don't think they have a shot in hell against Buffalo. I think Green Bay goes to 3-5, but I still say that Gutekunst makes moves.
All right, we'll see, Joe. I know there's a lot of Packer fans that are desperately hoping that you are right. My thoughts are that why would anybody want to help the Packers now? They're one of those teams that you just want to see lose. We're going to let you off the hook here, big guy, but we'll be following you on Twitter. And again, you can always check in with Joe through my Twitter at the Sports Carney. Joe, as always, appreciate you, man. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, take care, boys.
Thanks, Joe.
Right, see you, Joe. Chad will come back, wrap up a little shop here on the Sports Carnival, broadcasting live from the Trauma Center studios. We got to give a little update to this morning's poll question on Twitter at the Sports Carney.
The official lending team and mortgage partner of the Sports Carnival is the Midwest mortgage team of Land Home Financial. You know I like to tell a joke or two and play around, have fun. But getting a mortgage is no funny business. Don't play around with your finances. Call my good friends Michael Garcia and Todd Vercuse of the Midwest Mortgage Team at Land Home Financial today. Whether you're buying your first house, maybe you're buying your second house, maybe you're a seasoned real estate investor. Midwest Mortgage Team, Land Home Financial, Michael Garcia and Todd Vercuse. Give my good friends a call today. They're the official mortgage team of the Sports Carnival.
And now back to the Sports Carnival live from the Trauma Center studios. Winston Churchill once said, "I may be drunk, miss, but in the morning I'll be sober and you'll still be ugly." Now here's your host, Dave Carney.
Wow.
Winston Churchill, dropping Winston Churchill early.
I'm loving this. So a lot of people don't know this about Winston Churchill. In his free time, he liked to lay bricks. Did you know that? He was like a very bad, but a mason, and he liked to lay bricks. The reason that's a little known fact about Winston Churchill. The reason that we're a little bit more popular here on this program than Churchill right now, I'll tell you, because we're part of the professional pipe layers. Boosh! Thank you. You're welcome. Hey, Todd Vercuse checking in.
The Coos.
He says, "Boom, baby, that last name practice is paying off." I'm so sorry. Here's one of those little. It's like a Mandela effect, though, right? So when I first met Todd, he was coming into a place that probably no longer exists. It was a radio station, but somebody had pronounced his name and very strongly like wrong, right? And I heard it wrong, and it became one of those just things that you keep repeating over and over and over again. So now on my third to fourth iteration of Todd Vercruse's name, I'm starting to actually get it. So thank you, and you're welcome. Appreciate your patience, Todd. That's really the most important thing.
Okay, Sam O'Neill's checking in. He says, "Hey, Dave, great show, man. You don't want to see the Packers lose. That's frustrating talk."
Oh, I don't want to see, and Sean's, big time Wisconsin fan too. Thank you, Sean, for checking in. I don't want to see the Packers lose. What I want to see the Packers do right now is really figure out what it is that they're about. Because you look at a football team, and I don't even, okay, let's take a football team that's record right now isn't good. That's in the division that the Packers are in, the Detroit Lions.
Okay.
You can see what the Detroit Lions are trying to do. Okay. You can see that they're bad on defense, but they're going to get better and better. Aiden Hutchinson from Michigan is a special player. He's going to be like a Bosa, one of these cats. He's a game wrecker, right? But they're bad on defense. And you can see that because they give up way too many points. They got no secondary. But they're trying to develop a style. They're running the football. They're using play action with a limited quarterback like Jared Goff. And they believe in their head coach, who, say what you will, we made a lot of fun about this guy through the years for biting kneecaps and all this stuff. They're playing hard for this guy each and every game. You can see what they're trying to do with the Green Bay Packers, and not to be a Debbie Downer in any way, shape, or form, Sean and Packer fans, but with the Green Bay Packers, what are the Packers trying to do? Because if the reliance is on Aaron Rodgers to be that guy, the MVP that he was for the last 2 years, how long do you let that continue for? Because you know he's not going to play football forever. And I again, hate to relitigate this, but I've said this to Packer fans for years. He ain't going to play until he's 100. Okay, you can't always just rely on Rodgers, which means organizationally, schematically, you have to have something that you're trying to do. Look at what Dable is doing with the New York Giants, who, by the way, take the Giants against the Seahawks plus money this week. The Seahawks are banged up. The Giants are a real team. Dable knows they've got one of the worst offensive lines, a porous defense, a quarterback that's very limited. So he's scheming everything up to be exactly what that team can do. That's where I go with this Packers team. I have no real idea of what they're doing. And then they don't look special in any particular way. Aaron doesn't look like the MVP. There is no wide receiver that's popping. Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon are okay, but there's nothing that seems special about this team. And that's the frustrating part, I think, for Packer fans. And then, like we've been talking about, you go on a Pat McAfee podcast, which congratulations, Pat.
Yeah, good for Pat.
I mean, it's great for him, but you get this guy saying, we need to start cutting people's reps. Essentially, you're saying these dudes need to get fired.
Yeah.
And get them off the team.
And I think Joe was on target with Romeo Doubs. I think that's who he was talking about. If you remember back in the game against the Commanders, at one point the camera pans to him and he says to somebody, "What the fuck are you doing?"
Yes.
And I think he was talking about Romeo Doubs. So clearly that's who he's talking about. Here's some good news for Packers fans. Okay, it's all going to be fixed. The Packers announced yesterday that they have signed former North Dakota State tight end Josh Babbitts to the practice squad. So it's guys, just calm down. There's a bison coming in. I mean, everything is perfectly fine. I think Terry Saltzman here is being a realist. He says, I like the Packers. All I want to see is them to compete with the Bills. Sorry to let you down, Terry. I think it's going to be a disappointing weekend, but I am hoping the same thing. I hope it's at least watchable. I'm kind of leaning towards it's not going to be watchable right now in the state that the Packers are in mentally, clearly with this infighting that's going on and the way the Bills are clicking. And when Josh Allen gets on the field, I mean, he can throw up 4 or 5 touchdowns, by halftime. So I think it's going to be a rough weekend for him. I really do.
Yeah, I'm not super pumped about the game. I'll be right up front about that one because I love Buffalo where they're at. And I don't love them as a team. I'm not a Bills fan, but I love them as a football person, seeing where they're at. Doug McDermott, their coach, is a defensive guy. He gave over, and Brian Daboll gets a lot of credit for this. When Brian Daboll was their offensive coordinator with Buffalo, he took a passer, Chad, in Josh Allen that was wildly inaccurate, had all the physical skills, but wildly inaccurate, and really helped mold him into a much better player. So McDermott isn't really the offensive wonderkin. He works that Bills defense, which is fucking good. The Bills are a really scary team, but Terry, I'm agreeing with you on this respect. I hope they stay competitive, or at least are able to show some real competitive fire. The thing that makes us Packer fans a little bit, I think, sometimes nervous or jaundiced about Rodgers, when the going gets tough, this guy kind of gets going. He doesn't have an adversity factor that he's able to overcome quite a bit.
I like Morning What he says. Maybe the Bills re-sign Scott Norwood. Packers win on a missed field goal. Packers win. That would be awesome.
Dude, if they can keep it to that close, that'd be awesome.
I feel bad for Scott Norwood because basically, I think Ace Ventura: Pet Detective was based on that whole thing.
Yes, it was.
Imagine after that, like you just have to just kind of, scurry off, and you know what I mean? It's like all of a sudden now you're that guy. I kind of feel bad for him,
Well, I don't, because he's still doing fine in his life.
Kind of like Bartman. It's kind of like Bartman with the
okay.
the baseball catch.
Except for Bartman never actually had the opportunity to play professional sports.
I know.
A movie based on him, except for
the heel.
A hate film.
You're the heel the rest of your life, and that's Scott Norwood is the heel.
He is the heel. Boy, there's been a lot of heels, though. Think about the Viking fans, and I know Todd Vercruzzi's one. Think about all the times that the Vikings have been right there, too, but then they lose by a field goal. Field goal kickers get way too much guff. They really do. I remember this guy from the UFL. We were talking back in 2010, and I said, Adam, what is your thought on a field goal kicker? And he said, well, it makes all the sense in the world when they hit the field goal. When they don't, you don't want them on the team bus. Right? It's like, it only makes sense when they hit it. When they don't, you're like not even a part of the team.
Yeah, unless you're Josh Tucker. I don't know if you've watched any announcers this year where Josh Tucker's on the field. But these guys lick his balls like he's
talking about Justin Tucker with Baltimore.
Who's Josh Tucker? Justin Tucker.
Yeah, he's great.
He is great, but I'm telling you, all the announcers act like he's the second coming or something. I'm like, he's a field goal kicker. And I mean, as good as he is, I'm not saying he's not good. He's still a field goal kicker. I mean,
why they're saying that,
dude. They're barely part of the team. Honestly, if you've ever been on a football team, all kickers are barely part of the team. It's just a fact. Sorry, Pat McAfee. That's true. It's just a fact. You're a punter. Come on.
Okay, but what we're missing, Chad, and this is what I think is the most important thing of sports today, fantasy football. That's what these guys are really talking about. All these announcers have themselves in 4 or 5 fantasy leagues too, and they're like, Justin Tucker, man, he scored like 12 or 13 points on my fantasy team last week, right? I mean, it really was. It was a great weekend for Justin Tucker. Now, if I had only remembered to make my lineup with, a couple of people out, I might have actually won that one, but he was great. Speaking of winning tonight, who do you have? Who do you have? Bucks Nets, 6:30 p.m. By the way.
Okay, so let's see. Best player in the world.
Yeah,
against the worst defense in the NBA. I don't know. I think I'll take the Bucks.
Yeah, I like that too. I think I'm going to take the Bucks. I don't know if I'm going to take them on any sort of a wager, but I'm going to take the Bucks tonight. Let me go real quick to our poll question here on our Twitter feed, which is at the Sports Carney. Chad, Aaron Rodgers says on Pat McAfee, some guys, quote, need to get reps. Cut Do you think that Aaron Rodgers will get to make that decision, or is that still a coach's thing? Because I've been wondering if that's a decision that Rodgers gets to make or if that's a coach's thing. Right now, 72.7% of respondents say that's still a coach's thing, while 27.3% say Rodgers makes the calls. So take
secretly,
this
people don't know that Rodgers is actually the coach. People don't know that. So that's kind of deceiving.
He wanted to be the GM, that's for sure. He came back into town with all that nonsense. All right, boys and girls, you've been great today. Thanks for checking in with us on the Sports Carnival, broadcasting live from the Trauma Center studios. I'm Dave. This is Chad. Toodles.
Later.